Let's talk about ukulele tuning. We're going to be doing standard tuning, G, C, E, A. There are other tunings, A, D, F sharp, B, and then there's a B flat tuning where everything gets dropped down a whole step. But most common is G, C, E, A. And so that's what we're going to do. We'll be doing what we call re-entrant tuning, where the first string that we hit, the top string, is an octave higher than we expect it to be. Some people like to drop this down a whole octave, so it goes, instead of going, my dog has sleeps, my dog has sleeps. So, well, we're going to do re-entrant, because that's the original tuning of the ukulele, and this is a ukulele course. And so, let's get on with it. You notice that I have a device attached to my ukulele right here. This is this is one of the many kinds of ukulele, or musical instrument tuners. If I hook it up to my ukulele, when I strike a string, it'll tell me what note it is. You notice there's a green line. If I increase it, that's sharp, that's flat. When I get that green line, that's a G note. Right now I'm in tune. So what we're gonna do now is, anyone can tune to an electronic tuner. Some of the electronic tuners, by the way, they aren't as clear as this snark tuner, which is available for about 10 or 15 bucks. Some of them, like if I increase this up, you'll see that G change till eventually it becomes a G sharp note. Some tuners don't say G sharp. They'll have a little icon somewhere on the screen that'll turn on the sharp note, and you have to pay attention to that. The other thing about some of these tuners is that you can actually, this tuner right now is set for A440, which is standard tuning. Nowadays, it wasn't always standard tuning. It means that the note A is 440 cycles per second. But sometimes you have to change your tuning because the piano's out of tune, it's a little sharp or it's a little flat, or somebody's got a harmonica that's not, where the A isn't really a 440, or you're playing in a church in Europe and the pipe organ isn't tuned to A440, it's tuned to A436 or something. Well, you can actually change the setting of that A note on the tuner so that you can tune your ukulele to whatever instrument you're playing with. But for most of the time, you just want straight old A440. That's the standard ever since I think it was Hermann Göring standardized the instruments in Germany, so everybody would march in the same step and hear the same note. So it's a hangover from the Nazi era, but it's sort of a good idea. So let's figure out how to tune the ukulele to itself if you don't have a tuner, and what the relationship is between the strings. So I'm going to turn this off for now. We don't need it, but and I'll get you a close-up on the string so you can see what we're doing. First thing you want to do is set your C string, the third string. Set it to what you think is a middle C. It's the middle C on a piano if you got access to a piano, or it's a C note on a C harmonica, the fourth hole on a harmonica, or a C on a pitch pipe. Or another thing, something that I do is, there's a song I like to play called Pocket Full of Dreams. I'm no millionaire. And if I can pull that song out of thin air, I'm no millionaire, the first note is that C, is a C. I'm. So that's the note I'm looking for. Okay, so that's our starting point. That can be any note you want it to be, by the way, but for all practical purposes, for us right now, that's a C, or we've tuned it to an electronic tuner, or we listen to somebody else's instrument and we tune to their C. Then you go up to the 4th fret on that C string. Now just count it up, chromatic scale, C, C sharp, D, D sharp or E flat, E on the 4th fret. So we hit E, the next string is an E. There we go, those two are in unison now. Now the next thing, take that E string and count up to the 5th fret. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So that A and this A string should sound in unison. Even though I tune it with a tuner. There, that sounds better, huh? Okay, now we only got one string left, that's the G string. And so where's our G note that we want to key off of? Well, let's take the E string, E, F, F sharp, G. So this G, we're pretty much in tune, there you go. Now we can do one more final test on this G string. Let's go up to the 2nd fret, G, G sharp, A. So this A and that A, slightly different. So which one has to get moved? Well, let's verify that G again. Okay, now they sound better. Okay, so that's how you tune the instrument to itself. Now let's talk about tuners. This particular instrument, which is my own brand, Cool Hand Uke brand, which you can see at my website, coolhanduke.com. It has geared tuners, and they're pretty, they don't wander. They don't wander, so with a gear, but then you got the Mickey Mouse ears sticking out the side. A lot of old timers don't like those ears sticking out. That's not how original ukuleles were. But these days, people don't care one way or the other. So that's one kind of tuner. I'm going to show you some other kinds of tuners. They don't require much maintenance. Every once in a while, one of the paddles might get loose, and it's just, you just tighten that little screw right there. Just don't bear down or you'll break the paddle. You want to snug it though to keep it from getting loose. But generally they don't wander too much, this particular type of encased geared. So that's one type of gear for a ukulele. Let's look at some others. This is the type of tuner that came to be called patent tuners. The original ukuleles didn't have a screw in it. They just had like violin tuners, which I'll show you in a minute. These kind, as you keep working the paddles, this screw tends to loosen at time. And when it gets loose, the tuning won't hold. You'll tighten it up and you'll find that as you start to play, it starts to wander down. Well, what you need to do is you carry a little tiny screwdriver. Most of the time, it's either a little slot screw head or it's a Phillips head. For $1 or $2, you can buy little screwdrivers at hardware stores where you pull it out. You pull out the driver and slip it in. It's got a Phillips head on one end and a slot head on the other. You can use that to carry it in your ukulele case and tighten these up once in a while when they start to wander. But again, don't tighten too tight or you can break the paddles. That's pretty much, that's what they call a standard patent tuner. They're straight on, they don't have the Mickey Mouse ears sticking out. And they make the instrument kind of a little, I don't know, it's the way they built them many years ago. So let's look at another style. Now here's an old Martin from the 20s, Martin ukulele. And these tuners are straight on just like violin tuners. They're all one piece of wood and they're just tapered and they will wear out in time. It really takes a skill to fit them again. Sometimes they'll get a little burnish on it, a gloss, and they won't hold. And you can push them in a little tighter, but after a while you might want to do a real light sanding, get that sheen off of it so it can hold it. But not too many of these instruments around anymore. So that's the old standard. Martin stopped using these about 1928. They stopped using this particular kind of tuner, and all their instruments came out with what they call the patent tuner. Because these you couldn't patent these. These have been around for hundreds of years, you know, just whittled piece of wood. Now Kamaka has its own style of tuners, and they've got this big thumb wheel on it, and it's not just a friction thing. There's actually a little spring between the peg head, you know, down inside here. There's a spring, and so these sometimes, if you don't get them just right, they'll jump around a little bit. But when you get them right, they're pretty cool. They're larger than most tuners, but Kamaka is one of the oldest ukulele makers around right now. So and they're pretty strong. They don't give you much trouble. I'm going to show you one more kind. Now, these tuners, they look like the old-time tuners like Martin had on their original ukuleles, but these are actually 4-to-1 gears. These are called peg heads, and they're fairly expensive. And they have to be fitted to the instrument, and they're, you know, the ones that on this side of the peg head are different than the ones on those. You get them in the wrong position, and then the strings are everywhere. You always want the strings to be wound on the inside of the peg head. That way they're nice and even, and they get real, you know, they all kind of tune the same way. So these are they have to be fitted by a luthier. You have to taper the hole to the exact right size, put each one in the correct hole, and push them in. But they can be loosened. I can pull this out a little, you know, the paddle out a little bit, and they won't be as firm, and they can actually slip. But if you push down on it, it engages that gear, and they don't move at all. They're very cool. You can really fine-tune an instrument with these guys. Peg heads, P-E-G-H-E-D, peg head. They're fairly new to the ukulele world. They originally came out for violins. So that's that part. Another thing about tuning is when you change strings, you know, when do you change strings? Well, run your finger on the string. First of all, if they start sounding dead, dull, they lose their brilliance, change them. Most people don't have to change strings, but every couple of years. If you play a lot, maybe every year. Sometimes people change them just to see what the different kinds of strings sound like. Everyone's got different brands that they prefer. I'm not too particular about which brand I use. I like the Aquila strings. They're fairly expensive. When I put them on my banjo uke, I lose some of the brilliance. They're like too mellow for my banjo uke, so I don't use them on that. I like the Dario most of the time. They're a very old string. Been around a long time. And one of the things that happens when you put new strings on, by the way, back up a little bit. If they start sounding dull, that's a good reason to replace them. The other thing is if they start buzzing. Oftentimes you might have something happening at the bridge that makes it buzz, or something happening at the nut that makes it buzz. You can kind of put your hand there, but oftentimes it's because there's a little tear or a cut somewhere in the string that makes it buzz. The first thing to do, if you can't find an obvious reason at the nut or the bridge, then replace the string. And when you replace the strings, you have a settling in period. The knots on the strings, they get tighter and tighter, so the string gets looser and looser, and as you play, the tone goes down, and you need to bring them back up to tone. Same thing on the tuners. They get tighter and tighter, and the string itself stretches out over time. So, and after you've played for a couple of weeks, it'll start to mellow out so that just about every time you pick up the instrument, it's still in tune. But for a few weeks, it oftentimes will be way out of tune when you pick it up and you have to retune it. To accelerate the process of settling in, I will oftentimes tune it way up a whole step. You know, it won't hurt it to go up to A, D, F sharp, B, even a little, and then play it a lot, and then bring it back down to. And then, you know, and the other thing you can do is grab the string and pull on it like this a few times. Play it, do it again, play it, do it again, play it. That'll help speed up the settling in process of the strings, and then it'll be in tune every time you pick it up. And you can just keep on playing. Okay, get on with your playing.